Right, I'm back again with this. The two-tier disgrace Nana Akua rips into Labour as Bob Villan remains free, yet Brit's jailed for a tweet. So we've got lots of pertinent issues in a mishmash of sort of a conglomeration of something or other that's happening. Glastonbury, oh my God, have you ever seen that? Listen, I don't even recognise it. And I spent every year there up till, I think it was 2001, might have been 2002, can't remember. Anyway, yeah, no, I'd rather gouge my eyes out than go to that place now. It's just full of lovies. The BBC, which we noticed actually in our day. It was like a quarter of the BBC, then it was half of the BBC, and now it seems to be the entire BBC all decamped there, and every MP ever known to man goes down there to be seen with the shiny people. So, talk about woke. I mean, it put the woe in woke. So let's go on and see what Nana's saying, because this is an important, a very prescient issue, darlings.
Lucy Connolly is currently in prison for a tweet where she called for asylum hotels to be set on fire. You could argue that Bob Villan, what he has done is the same but far worse. A, because inciting death to the IDF could be seen as anti-Semitic, which is pretty much racism. And B, because chanting for the death of people, which the IDF is made up of, is incitement to violence. So what's the difference? And it's...
I see Guns N' Roses played there, didn't they? I didn't watch it, I couldn't, because it just makes my heart bleed. I prefer to remember him how he was and how they were. Slash is still the same though. He doesn't age, he's still Slash, isn't he? Have you noticed that with him? He literally doesn't care. He's still there, giving it all that with the guitar. But poor old Axel, I mean, you know, I would, but I don't think he would. And yeah, he was lovely in his day, wasn't he? But I can't watch it. I literally can't watch Glastonbury because it just breaks my heart. But there we go. So I'm given to believe they were there. And this chap was there who I've never heard of, Bob Villan. Well, he looks like a Rastafarian man, but apparently he was doing punk rock. We don't know. It's a complex world, isn't it? So come on, Nano. So what's he done? He said something.
Completely unhelpful when ministers come up with this. Was tweeting on Sky News earlier.
Right.
I'd also say to the Israeli embassy, get your own house in order in terms of the conduct of your own citizens and the settlers in the West Bank.
Yes.
So, you know, I think there's a serious point there by the Israeli embassy.
Yeah, you see, but they've been going on this two-party, two-state rule, haven't they, for years, this lot. So there's that. And there's a lot to be said. Obviously, Netanyahu is into a land grab. Zionism is actually a political ideology, and it's espoused by lots of far-right fundamentalist Christians, as much as what one terms as Zionists, that sometimes happen to be of the Jewish faith, but not all Jews are Zionists. In fact, most aren't. What people don't realise, if you study the TheYad Vashim or the Second World War and the state of what happened to the survivors, a lot of the survivors had to go into like internment camps after if they survived. They were there from, you know, when the war ended up to the late 40s, early 50s, trying to be rehomed and rehoused across the world. Some of them went home and they had programmes if they went home. So some of them, even though they survived the Jewish concentration camps, still got brown-breaded. The ones that didn't went to Palestine, the Promised Land, as they were told. And when they got there, the people that were already there and who had already occupied the country actually marginalised them and mocked them, and they were sort of de rigueur in pleasant Jewish society, because their idea was, and check it out, it's all there available, go on Yad Vashim or study any of the, you know, what happened, blah, and you will find that a lot of the survivors that did go to Palestine faced further discrimination. So, although not genocide, but they did face a lot of discrimination. I don't think I'd get away with saying the sort of taunts that were said to them. And the ones that were successful, I've always said that the pessimists of the Jewish faith, because in the run-up to the Second World War, it was sort of imminent, you know, and anyone that was anybody got away. So the pessimists spent the Second World War sunning themselves in California, while the optimists, who didn't ever think anything like that could possibly happen, perished. So there we are. And yes, it's a land grab, it's a shit show. I've said 100 times before, I'm going to let him
take seriously. I wish they'd take the violence of their own citizens towards Palestinians more seriously. We all condemned and continue to condemn what happened on October the 7th. We all want to see the return of the hostages.
Well, and yeah, but the thing is, was this a convenient happenstance? We don't know, do we? We're never going to know. But I've said all along, most civilised countries would have allowed a period of time where miners were evacuated. That used to be a thing. But it doesn't seem to be a thing nowadays in modern warfare, does it, darlings? It doesn't, does it? So, obviously, when you see miners, ostensibly we're being invited to believe, I don't know because I've never been to the West Bank or Gaza, that these people hide behind civilians. We're given to believe that, if that's true. But why wasn't there a period of time where they were allowed to evacuate vulnerable people, the disabled, the elderly, children, babies, pregnant mothers, or, people that were fighting age men, to get out of there? That is a mystery. It's a mystery, isn't it? It is. It's a mystery.
No justification for inciting violence against Israelis.
All right.
But,
well, there's no justification ever of inciting violence against anybody for anything, is there? There's no justification. Apparently, we put a man on the moon in 1969, and we're still doing this here. That's kind of like, well, it's like medieval, but with modern bleeding weaponry.
Israel's conducting this war has made it extremely difficult for Israel's allies around the world to stand by and justify. In fact, we've got to do the opposite as an international community, which is to challenge and urge a change.
Yeah, but you don't get to see the protests that they've had in Israel from genuine people that are saying, you're not doing this in my name. Much like the protests we had in Britain when they went into Iraq. I mean, it was the biggest protest ever. Was it 1 million people turned up? Did they take any notice? No. Did they bugger? So we don't hear about that, do we? There are more good people than bad, and I have to cleave to that and believe that, and I think we all should.
So basically, instead of outright condemnation, Wes has, in my view, inadvertently tried to justify the outburst by bringing in other variables that appear to act as some sort of reasoning or justification as to why someone might feel the way Bob Dylan does. That is actually irrelevant, especially when you consider
I think Bob Dylan was just Bob Dylan was just clout chasing, and he was playing to the gallery, wasn't he, really, and grandstanding? Because ultimately he's a musician. And if you think back to, say, the Vietnam War days and the happy hippie days of Woodstock and everything, I don't think anybody like Crosby, Stills and Nash, Jimi Hendrix, the group Love, Bob Dylan, even the Beatles, I mean, you know what I mean, say nothing, and the Doors said it a lot more subtly and somewhat culturally and musically, using their art and their talent, rather than just standing there with the microphone saying hate speech. And that's what it is, not my words, that's what it's been interpreted. I didn't see it, so literally don't know.
The environment Bob Dylan created at Glastonbury.
Yes, it's not clever.
Death to the IDF!
Oh, here we go. Yes.
Death to the IDF!
Right. That could be a problem. I was there the year the pyramid stage, the iconic pyramid stage burnt down. Yes, we cried. I don't know how many videos I'm going to come on and go, yes, I cried. Get the impression I cry at the drop of a hat. I literally don't. Oh, it was so sad, though. It really was. Was it the same year Michael Levis's wife died? I think it was. She died a few weeks before the festival of a sudden illness. And, yeah, I've met Michael Levis. I have. Yes, it's my claim to fame, darlings. It's not, but you know what I mean. Anyway, let's go.
You should be allowed to call publicly for the death of people and for that to be broadcast on TV. If Lucy Connolly is in prison for her tweet, then what I expect to hear from you, Wes, is a laser-like focus on the crime in hand.
She shouldn't be. I mean, even on a month of Tuesdays, this is a lady that's an exemplary character and no priors, who'd actually lost a child herself, was probably, you could, say grieving. When do you say, oh, I've just grieved enough, anyway, let's move on? You don't when it's a child. So there's that, and it played into a lot of things because she was a childminder, and she made the tweet, thought better of it, and deleted it. Everybody's done it. We've all done it. I've made posts and thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that, and deleted it. Usually someone screenshot it, so it doesn't matter because the internet's forever. As she found out to her cost, because she was in prison, is it 3 years or 2 years? Not sure. But I mean, even on the month of Tuesdays, given her previous exemplary character, if they really wanted to spank her, they could have just put a thing on her. What do you call it when you're not allowed out after 6 o'clock or something? One of them, which would have kept her indoors, or maybe took her devices. You know, they didn't need to do what they did. She literally became the poster girl for don't speak up against Keir Starmer, because he will. I was going to say bummer, but you know what I mean. It is a bummer if you get put in prison, isn't it? Yeah, it's more than a bummer. And her remaining child is bereft of its mother, so it's like the child is suffering for something that the mother did in the heat of the moment. And of course she's suffering as well. We won't go into that here, hey? Do you know what I mean?
Which is, in my view, incitement to violence on British soil towards people in another country fighting a war, not finding some form of, in my view, justification or criticism of Israel. And when you consider the hateful rhetoric that accompanied the outbreak, I'd expect West to outwardly condemn the whole affair and deal with the situation in hand, no matter what he thinks personally. I'm pretty sure...
Don't tell West Streeting to take his situation in hand. Could become rather uncouth, you know, darlings, and it's Sunday.
That incitement to violence is against the law, so stick with the programme, Wes. Your additional
incitement to violence is against the law, but people do it all the time on YouTube and nothing happens. And social media, generally. I don't want to say X, but you get me. So, I think people have become desensitised to it, and they're not sure where the margin is and where the law starts. I think the law starts when the politicians get involved. Because apart from that, you can just say what you want, do what you want, and get away with it, and it doesn't matter. The law isn't even-handed anymore, and it hasn't been for a very long time.
Set to inflame the situation. Why are you bringing in the West Bank? This is completely unhelpful. There's no excuse for incitement to violence or racial hatred, as you well know. That you did make clear on GB News earlier. The organisers have...
If you were living in the West Bank, you'd be hiding under the table, wouldn't you? Hoping... Shh! Don't look at me! You can't see me, I'm hiding. Do you know what I mean? Because if they can get away with it there, are they going to go, oh, look at the West Bank? We don't know, do we? We don't know. But if you notice all the other countries around there, they've shut the borders. Or is it just me? Shut the borders. Bit rude, isn't it? Would we do that if it was France? We shut the borders and tell them to do one? Don't think we would we? Mind you, we did. To be honest, we did. Anyway, going back, we did.
Have condemned Bob Villan, saying that a post on Instagram said as a festival, we stand against all forms of war and terrorism. We will always believe in and actively campaign for hope, unity, peace and love. With almost 4,000 performances at Glastonbury 2025, there will inevitably be artists and speakers appearing on our stages whose views we do not share, and a performer's presence here should never be seen as a tacit endorsement of their opinions.
Yeah, they are that family, the Eavis family. They are kind of like landed gentry, public figures, and they are peace and love and rock and roll, rather than the nuances. And probably thought, oh dear, you know. But did the BBC, who are publicly funded, should they have actually televised it? And that they had the chance to beep it out. Although they played it on, was it iPlayer that nobody watches? Something like that. I mean, I don't even watch telly, so I don't know. And now they're saying, oh, soz about that. Soz that got out there on the sly, we won't play it anymore. Well, it's too late, it's out there in the ether. You can imagine how many people have recorded it, can't you? Anyway, let's go.
And as for the BBC, well, they have some questions to answer. A spokesperson said some of the comments made during Bob Villan's performance were deeply offensive during this live stream on iPlayer, which reflected what was happening on stage. A warning was issued on screen about the very strong and discriminatory language. We have no plans to make the performance available on demand.
Can you imagine if you were there and you were of the Jewish faith? You just wither. I can remember being like that, being a Catholic, hiding your crucifix and that. In the 70s, the IRA. Do you remember all that? Very unpleasant. And so you're not going to say, oh, do you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm a Catholic. You just keep it well quiet. So if you can imagine them in that situation, it must be really bad for them. And it's not fair, because just because they are of that faith doesn't mean they support what's going on. What's going on is geopolitical rather than personal. Or is it just me? Might be just me.
So they put a warning up. Can you imagine if GB News had broadcast that? We'd be reported to Ofcom and then swiftly taken off air, never to broadcast again. On GB News, Health Secretary Wes Streeting condemned the remarks, but stopped short of calling for the BBC Director General Tim Davies' resignation.
The BBC have got questions to answer, as of the organisers of Glastonbury, about how this particular act came to be given such a prominent platform.
Well, and
this seemed to be echoed by Work and Pension Secretary.
They're musicians, aren't they? Don't you remember with The Doors and Jim Morrison, the police used to stand on stage and wait for him to mess up and then they'd just arrest him in front of the audience? I think that was for gyrating, or it might have been for getting his bits out. I'm not sure, I can't remember. But basically they used that rather than the fact that his songs were anti-war, weren't they? You know, Riders of the Storm and The Unknown Soldier and all this old... Do you remember? You must remember.
Helena Watley.
Can't believe that the BBC continued to show it. I think they've got questions to answer as to how did that happen.
Meanwhile, Israel's Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, Sharon Haskell, was
well, it basically happened because the BBC decamped down there and they're all on the Glastonbury spirit and just threw it up, didn't they? And probably weren't sentient or sane when they did it. Because, you know, it's not... Yeah, oh dear. It's a bloody music festival! That's what I glean from it. Maybe they should... They always did get into politics. I can remember waiting to see... I think it was Blur or somebody. And we had some Marxist chap on there ranting on about something or other. And then we had to have the Bishop of Bath and Wells up there ranting on. Didn't listen, do you know what I mean? But you have to go through it. Because they're all cosy and sort of PC, even in my day. But in my day, no one listened. But nowadays, they suck it up, don't they? I think it's fantastic. I mean, can you imagine as well? I mean, nobody did chuck anything. But it was that era when you were very lucky nobody chucked anything at you. Right, let's go.
I just don't understand how chants for death, for the destruction of Israel, racist comments like that have been just normalised in the UK.
Well, it will be interesting to see how the government react, if at all.
It's difficult, isn't it? Just going to have an argument now.
Before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. Glastonbury and the BBC say they are appalled by the state.
Yeah, wow, they're not appalled, but anyway, listen to this bit. Listen to this.
About the chanting and the rudeness and the awful hate-filled messages on stage.
Right.
I think you are wrong, Nana, unfortunately. It's entirely relevant. And it's entirely relevant because of the anger that exists, understandably, not just at Glastonbury, across our country, across every country in the world, internationally, there is...
Yeah, well, it's easy to be angry, isn't it, when you spent 380 quid on a ticket and you're in the brilliant sunshine in a festival. If you're there at the coalface, say, in the Middle East, it's a lot more nuanced, isn't it? And this is what you find with the middle classes. This is what you find from the shiny people. They're all sort of outrageously indignated, aren't they? On everyone's behalf. But, yeah, it is.
Damnation, outrage, and understandably great grievance with the actions of Israel. Now, of course, the chants that we heard from Bob Villan there, who I also hadn't heard of until yesterday, by the way, but those chants of free Palestine, you know, absolutely fine. Yeah. Death to the IDF. I understand the issue with that, I really do. But if your outrage is reserved for that, and for calling for the death of foreign military members from a foreign military...
Right.
Who are protecting the Israeli people, yes. They are people.
You're more outraged about that than you are...
Yeah, I love you, Nana, but there's no person in authority that's going to come out of this looking good. To hide behind civilians is reprehensibly vile. To not evacuate the children and vulnerable people is reprehensibly vile. What's going on is reprehensibly vile. The fact they shut all the borders from other Arab countries surrounding Gaza, reprehensibly vile. And for the fact that it's now become some sort of virtue signalling affectation for our middle classes is also, in my opinion, reprehensibly vile. And c'est la vie, it's the state of the world, isn't it? It's been going that way for a long time. Anyway, he goes on, she goes on, and nobody gets anywhere. Everybody starts shouting, so should we just click off because I'm bored? Right, wherever you are, I've done 2. I'm on it today, aren't I? I'm raging.